when the Acura MDX was introduced some 20 years ago, it in fact ushered in a new era for Honda's premium sporty luxury brand. Though I'm pretty certain that at the time, Acura didn't see it that way, if mostly because the premium mid-size luxury segment was only beginning to grow, with entries from the Lexus, the RX for example, and the BMW X5, and possibly one or two more. But it's worth the interest in this segment quickly exploded. And this is what I'm trying to say. I think right around then, 2001, 2002 or whatnot, this is when Acura figured that there was more money to be made selling SUVs as long as they were Acura-like or Honda Plus-like. And it really paid off, especially when they introduced maybe not the first generation of the RDX, but certainly the second generation of the RDX. Now, when it comes to the MDX itself, it and I have had a fabulous relationship over the last 20 years. I've been very lucky, or lucky enough, I should say, to have taken every generation on a family trip. In fact, that applies because this is where I'm at right now. And I've always found the MDX to be efficient, agreeable to drive, spacious, well-equipped, and when you factor in the pricing, very value-packed. And that still applies to the all-new 4th generation 2022 MDX. In fact, if the 3rd generation MDX was a little bit of a, best way I can put it, a hit or miss, right? The 4th generation is truer in many ways to the 1st and possibly 2nd generation of the SUV, in the sense that it's more Acura DNA than mainstream DNA or mainstream pleasing everyone. Though, having said that, the new 2022 MDX is still designed to please as many possible owners, drivers as possible. Now, I do very much enjoy the 2022 MDX, which means that in the following video, I'll tell you why. We'll go for a little walk around, both inside and out. Be warned, I am, as I've said, on a family vacation with the 2022 MDX, so it's a little bit of a mess inside, but that might give you a better idea of what it's like to actually live in and with the 2022 MDX, and then we'll take it on the road where things have evolved greatly and not so much at the same time. Not exactly your typical setting for an MDX, I think, but admittedly, it looks pretty damn good. Okay, product planning, just so you know, in case you didn't, is very different for SUVs in Canada and the US, especially when it comes to premium vehicles, whereas two-wheel drive, be it front or rear, is often standard and all-wheel drive is an option. Whereas in Canada, well, even though the line is very thin between the two countries, well, all-wheel drive is standard. And this serves to explain why the base price for the MDX in the US is only $47,200 versus our $56,405. At the other end of the spectrum in the US, so you're looking at $60,950 for the SH all-wheel drive Advance. In Canada, you do get a Tech. Then there's this one, the A-Spec, and the top trim is the Platinum Elite at $67,405, which I'm happy to say this is not it, as I've already showed you. So with the base MDX, you do get a lot of tech and a lot of stuff, wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. You get a 12.3-inch display, which is really nice, except for the fact that it comes with true touchpad interface. Yeah, that gives you an idea how I feel about that. It's a 7-seater configuration, heated steering wheel, 12-inch digital instrument panel, and a bunch of other stuff. Stepping up into the $63,405 A-Spec, you do get these really nice, unique to A-Spec 20-inch wheels, which are dark gray-ish. You get LED fog lights, which I can show you right now, why not? Which are kind of cool, right there in the center of your screen. You get a flat bottom steering wheel, which looks great, ultra suede and leather interior, cooled front seats, and this color, well, it's not included, but is definitely the one to get. Performance red. All the dark trim accents and all of that just really pop with this color. I guess while we're here, styling. I mean, the influences at Acura are fairly clear. I mean, maybe if we squint and squat, well, maybe not that much, but there's definitely some TLX in here where the A-pillar is pushed back and it's really raked. The hood is long and flat and high. Look, generally speaking, it's a really, really good looking SUV. I've got nothing negative to say about it. I mean, even the grille kind of grows on me. I forget what Acura calls it, but it looks like a star that it's exploding. I don't know if you can see that because of the sun. Anyhow, good looking SUV, enough of that. Okay. Let's complete now our tour on the interior. Power hatch, obviously, to be expected. Okay, so according to Acura, with the third row in place, you're looking at just over 500 liters of trunk space. It's misleading and not at the same time, because you do get a lot of storage room under the floor, which is brilliant. Is that going to go back in? There we go. But if the third row is down, you're looking at almost 1,400 liters of trunk space. I think it's something like 1,360 and change. Very usable, very accessible. Now, as I said, this is a 7-seater configuration. So what I've done is created a captain seat configuration, because the center seat right here can be removed and stored in the garage as it is right now. So it allows easier access to the rear if you need, or extra storage if you don't want to use the, well, faux bench, if you will, as storage. The seat up, I went back there once. It's not that bad. It kind of works well enough, but as well, most of the time it's just for smaller children or smaller adults and larger children. It works. Otherwise, there's plenty of space. Everything works out beautifully. Some touches that you get the A-spec, the contrast stitching, which is beautiful. This is always wonderful. Okay, up front, Acura, I just kind of mentioned it. Look, everything about the fit, finish, the materials is really, really nice. I mean, these materials actually look cheaper-ish than they feel, so that's a great trick. A lot of OEMs are working that way now. ELS Studio 3D, this is also part of the A-spec, and for the Platinum Elite, lovely place. Here your suede, ultra suede and leather seats. They're actually quite comfortable, very supportive, and adjustable in many different ways. Now let's just slide aboard. Does that put you in the mood? Well, it doesn't work for me, but which is weird because I kind of like this SUV. Let's start her up. Okay. All right, so then you already got kind of a shot of the 12-inch display, which is nice. It does switch with the drive modes. So here's a moment of silence. Okay, so here's your IDS switch. Oh, and individual. Now that's a good thing. Again, the noises. Anyway, these are just details. In my mind, it's like no 22-year-old is actually going to buy one of these. It's going to be a 65-year-old, and the noises won't do anything for him. While we're up here, let's just talk about visibility, which is generally good until you get to this. A little bit of a blind spot, but you know, that it works out fine. Oh, here's a good shot of the steering wheel. Flat bottom. It really looks like it belongs in a TLX Type S. It's beautiful. There's your screen, 12.3 inch, which is nice, except as we know, it's not, it doesn't, right? Because here's your true touchpad interface. Do I spend 6 seconds to tell you that it's still not intuitive, still very distracting, and still a terrible, terrible way to access the screen? Most OEMs are working on bringing the screens forward. Lexus, for example, which also had that massively terrible remote touch joystick or pad like this. For me, this is the one reason why I wouldn't get one. But maybe you'll like that because, you know, like touches like that, it's kind of cool. It's very, I don't know, it's neat. This becomes a habit, I suppose. But what does become a little bit tougher to deal with is the fact that there's really no storage in here. As I said, I mean, yes, you do have the bin, which is deep-ish, but there's no place to just actually, this is your wireless charger for the phone. There isn't enough storage here, and the door bins aren't that deep. So that would be, you know, one criticism, I should say. And this, I mean, how can I put this? I would just cut this out like that and replace it with, you know, I can storage here, touchscreen access there, and maybe a shifter. But anyway, that's about it for the criticism. So it's time for a drive. Okay, as I can see, almost see, the end of this hard-packed dirt and gravel road, which explains why the phone is shaking so much. I have to say that I'm quite comfortable inside, and that brings up what I think is the most critical and important improvement that Acura has brought to the 4th generation MDX over the outgoing model, and that's just overall ride quality and refinement. What Acura has done is quite simple. I mean, they've reinforced the structure, which is key, and then souped up the suspension, or upgraded the suspension, if you will, with some double wishbone up front and multi-link setups in the rear. And most importantly, and what makes a world of a difference, are adaptive dampers. Now, thanks to them, now I'm set in normal drive mode. I'm not even in comfort, but the ride is really, really nice, even when it gets ugly. I'm impressed, and I absolutely love this about the MDX. In fact, as far as I'm concerned, this is its greatest asset. But what that also means with the adaptive dampers and the reinforced structure is that just overall driving enjoyment, that sense that you're driving something that's well put together, is through the roof, especially compared to the previous MDX. I mean, if I stick to the driving experience itself, this has variable ratio steering, which I would have hoped to be a little bit more engaging. Is not exactly the right word, but you know, not as light. In normal, it's really, really light. In comfort, it's the same. And even if I switch into sport, there's just something, it's kind of, there's no fake connection, if you will, to the front wheels. I mean, it does weigh up, but I don't know. There's something utterly artificial about that. Now I'm on pavement, so it's going to get a little quieter in here, a little bit smoother, at least I think. So steering, you know, Acura still promotes this as a performance driving SUV, so steering is part of that, and it's not quite there. Another element, as I slow down now, is the brake pedal. It's extremely spongy, and the travel is way too long. In fact, now, well, almost immediately after I picked up the MDX, I've just picked up the habit of pumping in, releasing, pumping twice. That increases the boost of the assistance, so the pedal firms up quickly that way, and it feels like something's going on when I get onto the brake pedal. Performance, obviously, has to be there too, and it is in some ways. Back again is Honda and Acura's naturally aspirated 3.5 liter V6, which is as creamy smooth as always. It just delivers its power as nicely as you can possibly imagine. Acura did kind of, you know, if you've heard the commercials, 5,000 RPM, you know, the volume kind of builds into the truck. It gives you the impression that big things are happening, but the fact of the matter is, unless you hold it even longer than that, it doesn't actually move that much. I mean, it's 290 horsepower at 6,200 RPM and 267 pound-feet of torque at 4,700 RPM, which means that in normal drive mode, as I am right now, you gotta hold it because the transmission, eventually it'll kick down. So let's just, for fun, go into sport. The 10-speed is much more eager, but still, now things start to happen. I don't know, I guess in these days where you expect boost or hybrid assistance, naturally aspirated V6 is still wonderful, but because Acura wants you to believe that this is a performance SUV, it doesn't quite deliver that. But if you dial that back, it's kind of like they want to set a toner ambience, like with the interior noises and the commercials, if you heard them with the V6 roaring. It's not actual. I'm going to go back into, I did set my individual mode with, you know, throttle response or powertrain on sport, and everything else is essentially in normal or comfort, which in my mind is the best combination of everything. But if you take away the fluff, right, the sounds, essentially is what it all is, the noises, this is still a hyper competent, very comfortable and agreeable to drive SUV. I mean, if I have to dumb it down to one single element why maybe you shouldn't, unless you have the patience of a saint, is this down here. And then there's the value. All right, at $63,405, you get a lot of kit, great design, a lot of stuff going for this SUV. But, you know, even in this segment, that Audi Q7 is difficult to ignore. You know, on a lease for, you know, $200 more a month. Anyway, Acura is still working on their brand, and the new Integra might help with that. Infiniti with the new QX60, yes, I'm back on a gravel road. They have a heck of a lot more work to do than Acura. This is still a very fine SUV, but on a lease, why not go for an Audi? But in a long-term relationship, I'd probably stick to an Acura.